Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Recycled Content, a podcast of the Association of Plastic Recyclers, an international nonprofit and the only North American organization focused exclusively on improving recycling for plastics. I'm Kara Pochiro, and I'll be your host today. Launched in celebration of the 30th anniversary of the APR Design Guide for Plastics Recyclability, the inaugural APR Recycling Leadership Awards recognize packaging designers, manufacturers, researchers, or innovators who are improving recycling for plastics. Winners were announced during the Plastics Recycling Conference earlier this year with award categories that focus on unique contributions moving plastics recycling forward, including outstanding leadership, recycling technology innovation, package design innovation, and PCR utilization. Today, we are talking to the winner of the Outstanding Leadership Award, Debra Wilson. Debra's outstanding commitment and passion have driven over 33 years of involvement in plastic standardization activities. Debra previously served as Consumer Products North America Material Science Director at Berry Global, which recently merged with Amcor, where she is now Materials R&D Director. A key leader and mentor to many, she brings valuable insights into how different elements need to align to achieve sustainability in plastics packaging. Her contributions have been instrumental in developing the APR Design Guidance for rigid polyolefins, ensuring alignment with industry practices for package design, collection, and recyclability. Debra is an integral voice in the APR Olefins Technical Committee, where she co-chairs several working groups. She's also been involved in the Tube Recycling Project with Stena Inc., helping to draft and publish the Plastic Squeeze Tubes Design Resource Document. She actively participates in several RecyClass teams and plays a key role in aligning APR design guidance with RecyClass standards. Thanks so much to Debra for joining us today.
Thanks, Kara. I'm excited to be here and talk a little bit about some of the stuff that I've done over my long years in the industry, specifically and mostly in the polyolefin space, but specifically and more aligned with the standards world in my history here. So thank you again for inviting me to join.
So pleased to have you. Lots of great experience that we can talk about today. And of course, we were very pleased to honor you with the very first Outstanding Leadership Award this year. We mentioned that you have over 33 years of experience in the plastics industry and standardization activities. Tell us how you've seen the industry evolve and change over the years, and what are you most encouraged to see?
Well, what I can tell you is it's constant. The change is constant. What I see driving the standards world specifically is really based on needs and mostly their business needs, especially in creating standardized ways of communication, et cetera. Over the years, and I think I started back in the late 1980s or right around that time, is things kind of ebb and flow. So when there's a need in the industry, everyone comes out of the woodwork to help and have an opinion, and that's great. It's really great. And then all of a sudden, those needs are met, and then things kind of subside, and you really don't have a lot of participation in some of the standardization efforts. But what I see now is, with the whole sustainability effort, it's really picking back up again, and getting involvement from the total value chain is extremely important, and we're finally starting to see that evolution come, and that's exciting. So I'm assuming that we're going to continue this for quite some time because there's a lot of work to do in this space.
Always a lot to work to do, kind of constant evolution with the packaging world, and of course, a lot to do with policy as well. You've recently had some big changes with Amcor and Berry Global finalizing a transformational merger, and you're now operating as Amcor, which is a global leader in flexibles, containers, and closures with unprecedented innovation capabilities and scale to solve consumer healthcare customers' sustainability needs. Are there a lot of changes involved with your current role?
Well, we're probably now just a month in. We're just starting to do the organizational structure. So It's not really clear 100% what we'll be focusing on. And me personally, I don't see any change as far as our participation in the standardization efforts, whether it be ASTM, ISO, RecyClass, or APR. I think all of that is going to continue. As you know, Amcor is a big flexible group as well as a rigids group. There will probably be different people on the flexible side. I tend to focus on the rigid side, but I think what we're going to see is continual involvement, and with the growth, it's going to extend across all material bases, not just polyolefins, because there is quite a bit in the PET rigid space with Amcor. We do a lot in the bottle space. So I think it's going to continue. It's just organizational structures that you go through with any kind of merger or acquisition activity. So I will say that it's moving quite rapidly. So we're excited and looking forward to continue to participate actively in all the committee activities.
That's great to hear. Of course, you've been active in APR for quite a few years now, and you mentioned some other organizations too. You're an integral voice in multiple organizations and committees setting guidance for plastics sustainability, including, which you mentioned, ASTM International, the International Organization for Standardization, or ISO, and RecyClass, which is the European Plastics Recycling Organization. The APR does a lot of collaborative working towards global alignment of design for recyclability guidance, PCR certification, in general, circularity for plastics. Tell us a little more about some of your work with those organizations and why this type of guidance and standardization is so important.
Well, let me start with why it's important. All of these groups really reside on developing a consensus basis, which is very important to moving standards in the world. And for the most part, almost all of those are based on technical review. They're extremely valuable to the industry. It sets up a common language for trade and just basic understanding of the materials, including PCR. That's the importance of it. What has happened over the years is I do chair ASTM D20 on plastics. And since I took the chairmanship role, we've established a sustainability director, which is focusing on developing and monitoring the sustainability efforts. And the ISO TC61 activity, I'm the head of the U.S. delegation. But in addition to that, I am running one of the working groups on sustainability. And we participate greatly in those activities as well. Those are standards that are recognized in the RecyClass space. I sit on, as I do in APR, actually I sit on a few more committees there than I do in APR, but the big one where we spent a lot of time aligning with is the polyolefin space, because that's where my experience lies and I can contribute to that. So lots of changes happening. The differences between, I think, APR and RecyClass has to do with the recycler input and the differences between the recycler input on those two committees. But we're aligning where we can. And it's pretty exciting to see the change. And I think what is more exciting is for the converters and the brand owners out there when they want to do their design for recycling on a packaging, and they can go to one, and that one will give them global, whichever one they do, will give them global access. And I think that's extremely important, so you don't have to go through it twice. It can be quite lengthy, so that's really a benefit to the industry.
All of this work that you're doing sounds like a whole team of people should be doing these things. So that's a big part of the reason why you got this great award as a leader. You have a lot of responsibility, of course, within formerly Berry, now Amcor, and then such an important role on all these different committees and organizations. Thank you again for all that you do there. And obviously you've worked on a wide variety of projects over the years with these organizations, with Berry and now Amcor. Could you give us maybe a few examples of projects that you're particularly proud of?
And I'm going to stick to the standard space, just because standards and recycle space, just because there's a lot of projects I do outside of that area. But I think some of the big ones that we've had over the years is the whole development of how to characterize materials and make sure that we're comparing like for like data through the years. The standards of both the testing and specimen prep standards actually broke several of those. So it's really helpful. And again, this gets back into being able to trade data. Now that after joining APR, one of the things I noticed immediately is there were some areas that needed to be tightened up a bit from a testing and protocol method. So that's how I got started in my activities with the Polyolefins Committee. And I'm real happy to say that we've tightened up those areas. So that is really good. However, we're going into some new areas that we're going to have to work on together. And there's a lot of really great team members there that do a lot of the work. And I think it's going to be great. I think probably one of, in my time with APR, I think one of the big things that we've done is the tube development work with Stina. I think that is really, it was a team effort for sure, but I think some of the documents that we prepared for APR, which are now being, I think they're in RecyClass now. I'm fairly confident they are, really help define how to design those tubes. So I think that's probably one of the big hurdles that we overcame, and really appreciate the assistance from Stina.
Yes, we have talked about tubes as an example on this podcast a few times. It's just a great example of the collaborative efforts of many who come together to make these changes, and then they share out with the industry. Often these things are proprietary design structures and things like that. So it's great when we can collaborate and improve the industry overall. And then, of course, you mentioned there were areas in the design guide that needed, the APR design guide that needed tightening up. This is always evolving. It's not just set in stone. We have to change with the industry as package design changes, as infrastructure changes for recycling. So it takes the efforts of all of our members like you to come together so we can make this the best possible resource out there.
Absolutely. And I guarantee you it's not going to stop. It's going to continue to change. It's just the evolution of the business. But that's good. Change is good as long as we're all aligned and going in the right direction.
Exactly. And we have done a lot of alignment work with RecyClass, as you mentioned, as much as we can, because of course, collection is different across the world. Recyclables aren't collected in the exact same way in the United States as they are across Europe. So we align as much as we can.
Agreed.
Plastic recycling always faces many challenges. One that we just talked about, different types of collection, different types of programs across the United States and the world. But our supporters who are working to drive change in companies and organizations like those we've been talking about have worked over the years. Often they face an uphill battle with package design changes, with PCR utilization, and the list goes on. So do you have any stories you can share about some of the roadblocks you've met along the way that you've had to overcome?
Well, there's actually too many.
Right.
As a converter and working with our brand owners, probably the biggest hurdle well, there's two big hurdles, and we're also into food packaging. So the two big hurdles are, one, having some guidance on requirements, whether it's EPR, whether it's recycled content, whether it's labeling, whatever, consistency from state to state. This makes it very difficult to design a package that's going to meet all the requirements for everybody. And frankly, there's not enough recycled material, if you were to do that, to be able to meet those commitments. So that's number one. The other big issue, and I know it's a topic that's probably going to be discussed even more as we continue to go on, is the availability of materials for food contact or food sensitive applications. And this is going to be, it's a sticky area, because even with virgin materials, it's a sticky area. So let alone with PCR. So there's a lot of new technology coming out, which is very positive. And both RecyClass and APR are working on this. So I'm hoping great things come from the activities that we're working on. But those are the two big areas. I think all of us understand that there's an issue with collection. That this, I don't think I need to repeat that for the audience because it's a definite issue. But outside of that, I think the other thing that the recyclers are going to have to work on is improving their technology. And I know it's tough for them because it's a cost adder, and the market is very cost sensitive at this point. So those are kind of it in a nutshell, Kara. But we'll face them, we'll get over them, and we'll continue to improve. That's the nice thing about this is it's a continuous improvement.
Absolutely. Lots of challenges. You get to these roadblocks and you figure out how to get past them. You mentioned right up front about the different requirements across the states. Recycling is mostly a state and local issue. While we do see some activity on a federal level, it's much slower to happen. Not a lot of laws for recycling on that level. So that's definitely a challenge. But all of these things, that's what we do. Like you said, we collaborate, we work across different companies, different organizations to figure out what to do about these challenges.
Agreed. Agreed. We'll get there.
Yes, we will. Finally, to wrap up today, any tips, any advice for the audience or those that may be new to plastics or the recycling industry? What are some tips that you could give them? Maybe some kids coming right out of college.
I would just say get involved as fast as you can. This has been my statement ever since, and all the standardization effort that I've been through in all the different areas is the more involved you are and the more you understand what the issues are, it's only going to aid in participation and your involvement and the value of your involvement. So that would be my number one thing is just get involved. Even if you can't actively participate now, at least you could show up and you can listen to what is going on from your peer groups. And actually, it's an educational effort too. You are learning things as you're sitting there. So, and you get to collaborate with other folks in the industry and maybe there's some solution space that you hadn't thought about that is out there. So I think that would be my key thing is just get involved.
Definitely agree with groups like APR, like RecyClass, with the standardization organizations that we talked about, such as ASTM and ISO. And I like how you kept saying your industry peers and collaborators, where sometimes people just too often think, oh, these are my competitors and we shouldn't be sharing our information. It's always so great to see at APR meetings and other organizations how these companies can come together and they don't see each other only as competitors, but how can we come together as an industry to make things better for recycling?
Well, sure, there's always that. But I can tell you in all the years that I've spent, I probably learned the most from what I would consider my competitors. But in a technical world, in a world where we're trying to solve problems, we're not competitors. We're co-conspirators, I guess, is if you want to call it that. but we're working together to solve some technical problems and there's antitrust laws and things that are built into the system that we're going to limit those kind of behaviors during discussion anyway. So I think it's all good. And it's for me, someone who's been in the standards world for this long, it's really exciting. I think it's really important. If you hop in for a year and then don't come back, it's really not adding any value and it's kind of a waste. So I think getting involved and continuing working in this area is going to be very valuable to the individual and the companies, actually. So I think it's great.
Yes, completely agree. So get involved, stay involved, and collaborate with those co-conspirators. I like that one too, Debra.
You like that word?
Yes, I like that one.
Thanks again for letting me share my opinions. I appreciate that. And any of those listening to this webcast and don't know how to get involved, I'm well able to assist and happy to help wherever I can. So look forward to hearing from a lot of folks.
That sounds good. So, and thank you, Debra, and congratulations again on winning the very first Outstanding Leadership Award of the APR Recycling Leadership Awards.
It was very unexpected and extremely important to me because it's probably one of the first award, well, other than the normal achievement awards, it's the first award that I've gotten of this kind for my contributions, and it's very much appreciated.
And well deserved. So thank you again to Debra for joining us today. And thanks to everyone for listening. We will have the other APR Recycling Leadership Award winners on upcoming podcasts, so stay tuned. For more information about those awards, as well as the APR Design Guide and much more, visit the APR website at plasticsrecycling.org. Check us out on LinkedIn, Facebook, and X at APR Recycles. And we do want to hear from you, just like Debra said, and you can feel free to contact APR at info@plasticsrecycling.org for more information. You can find recycled content wherever you get your podcasts. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review.
This podcast was recorded in the studios of
Policy Resolution Group, Washington, D.C.